IV. Expand our horizons. 15. The universal connection. Now that we have reviewed human perception, objective reality, and the universe itself, it's time to take it to the next level and beyond. As the previous chapters have attempted to help us to better understand the universe and our place in it, the next 3 chapters, chapters 16 through 18, will explore the universe connection and help us to expand our life experience beyond any expectations. 16. Spirituality. In no way is this religious book, however, the matter of spirituality and its role in achieving happiness and peace cannot be ignored. Here we will discuss religion in a generic way of helping us objectively separate spirituality from other elements of the world's religion. Regardless of your religious affiliation and traditions, we can all agree that historically human beings have been looking up to the heavens in search of a divine being, a place to live after we die and/or to define the purpose of our lives here on Earth. Many of the earliest civilizations strived to explain the netherworld. The early Egyptians worshipped the sun. The American Indians worshipped the Great Spirit. The eastern regions worship natural forces. The list is endlessly. Putting my own religious faith aside for a moment, in my most objective thoughts, I have to accept that there is someone up there, an omnipresent being. There is too much history and tradition pointing to that conclusion. There are too many witnesses attesting to their experiences. There is too much documentation developed through the ages on the subject to ignore. Lastly, the global nature of this phenomenon is astonishing. Spiritually oriented cultures have thrived separately on every continent. If the awe-inspiring evidence does not convince one, we'll try to be open to the notion just for the remainder of this section. 16.1 The world's religions. My objective look at the world's religions concludes that they each may possess one or all of the following attributes. Faith. Faith is based on a belief system. It is belief in, devotion to, or trust in somebody or something, especially without logical proof. Concisely, it is the belief in a mystery. In many cases, there is a set of interconnected mysteries all supporting a common theme. Typically, religions are based on faith. It is important to the growth of religion to require a personal commitment. The commitment is best shown through a person's willingness to believe in the unknown. It is safe to say that all reputable religions have a strong level of faith incorporated in their creed. Atonement. Atonement is essentially the request for forgiveness through mercy, sacrifice, or suffering. It is the making of reparation for a mistake. It is the action of reconciliation, to make consistent or congruous. It seems only a few religious groups ask for forgiveness as part of their doctrine. Spirituality. Spiritually is the desire to communicate with heavenly beings through chanting, prayer, or other mantras. The basic practice is the emptying of one's mind of thoughts, or concentration of one's mind on just one thing, in order to aid mental or spiritual development, contemplation, or relaxation. There are 2 types of heavenly communication, formal and informal. Vocalized prayer and chants are examples of formal communication, while silent prayer and meditation is considered informal. Meditation is considered the most informal of all. It is simple, the act of silently emptying of the mind of thoughts and waiting for inspiration. In other words, if prayer and other mantras are the act of send a message to the heavens, meditation is the act of accepting a message from heaven. Our understanding is that communication with the spiritual world can only be achieved through these practices. Only about half of the world's religions contain a spiritual meditation regiment. Acts. In one respect, acts is similar to atonement as it is request for favor. Through well-intended acts of goodwill a person can gain favor or mercy. On the other hand, acts represent a person's ability to embrace what is good while rejecting what is bad. Only a select few of the world's religions support this concept. In fact, many faith groups rigorously reject the notion. As you may have guessed, the above evaluation of the world's religions is an exercise in objective thinking as detailed in Chapter 12, An Object-Oriented World. I believe it is important to distill down emotional subjects, in this way, to better understand the basics, and of course to help one make better choices in life. Just to balance the discussion, atheism is considered the lack of religion and faith. It is the act of discounting and rejecting of most of what is exampled about. It is ironic that atheism can be included in the above list as disbelief is a form of faith. This is also true for scientists as they endeavor to discover they must first believe before starting their research and experiments. It's funny, the more we are different, the more we are the same. 16.2 Heaven and Earth. It may sound silly and a bit presumptuous to consider the existence of heaven and earth, but there are some people who maintain neither exists, by stating it is all a figment of our imagination. This is not a new idea. In fact, early Christians in Egypt believed that we are all heavenly spirits that are operating an avatar. There will always be theories and beliefs that this world is not real. As said before, our goal is to remind us all that it is real. The purpose of this section is to reinforce that notion. As a logical and intellectual exercise, let's take a few moments and apply the concepts discussed above to describe heaven, the netherworld, and earth with the understanding that they exist and are closely related. Heaven and the notion of a netherworld exist everywhere in our culture. It has been referenced throughout history and is illustrated in contemporary literature, graphic novels, comic books, and movies. They are in our dreams, in our hopes, and our souls. To review these concepts objectively, we need a generic object classification, a new word, realms. Historically, the word realm is associated with kingdoms. It represents the king's holdings as far as the king can see and hope to control. It may hold uncharted territory, just in case anybody else wishes to claim it. My favorite realm descriptor is the early American colony territories' realms. For example, in the original maps of the territory of New York, it stretched to Lake Michigan. At the time, it was unreasonable for anybody in New York to claim or very least understands what lay out beyond the Hudson River, but yet they wanted it, so they claimed it. For a short time, Ohio and Indiana were in the realm. For us, the realm of the earth is still a bit out of anyone's control, yet the United States claims air and sea supremacy. So, let's look at the entire universe as a realm, one we wish to claim but yet cannot understand. The same is true for heaven. 95% of humans believe that someday they will travel to heaven. Many religions claim it, and yet it is far beyond our comprehension. Lastly, let's talk about the netherworld, the mysterious void, the intradimensional phenomenon that may hold ghosts, mystical travel, limbo, purgatory, and/or possibly hell itself. Before we start, here is one side note for science fiction fans. We are assuming there is only one heaven and one universe. That's enough for our illustration. No parallel universes here. 16.2.1 Universal Realm. First, let's discuss the one we know the best, the universe. In terms of object-oriented reality, what we know so far is that it has a collection of attributes and functions that provide purpose as it expands itself, creating space and time. It is our best baseline for discussions of the other realms, as it is the one we live in and know the best. We like to picture it as a ball. We know it is vastly large relative to us and the Earth. Our Earth is small in comparison but important in its location and function. Scientists call it the Goldilocks planet, not too hot, not too cold. The attributes and functions of our universe and our Earth are so numerous, we can't count them, so let's focus on a few basics for our realm baseline. The universal realm is three-dimensional. It has space. It has time. 16.2.1 Heavenly Realm. Our assumption of heaven realm is based on readings from the Holy Bible, Quran, and other religious books simply tell us that there is a place for us, that we can exist there in spirit, and at the end of time we will exist there in body. Most importantly, we will live there for eternally. Three attributes are identified by the above statements. First, heaven has space. Second, heaven does not have time. And third, heaven has both a mystical and physical quality. Mystical in the way it houses spirits, and physical as it may house bodies too. As heaven and earth, universe, have the same creator, it stands to reason that its space is similar to our universe. It's easy to say that heaven is vast in size and has many environments, from the very hot to the very cold. It has great voids of nothingness and objects of great mass. I believe the heavenly realm is similar to our universal realm with the exception of time. There is no time attribute. It's eternal. What does this mean? Well, there is no heavenly explanation. It is a static place, most likely created in its completeness in an instant. I like to believe that heaven had its own Big Bang, but it was not the same as ours is continuing. Heaven is complete and has been since the beginning. Like our universe, somewhere in an obscure corner there is an earthly place that is similar to our home here. This is the place built for us. It is logical to assume that it should be a place with similar attributes and functions to Earth, a place we find familiar, our Goldilocks heaven. But, we can speculate that there are some differences between the universal Earth and the heavenly Earth because time is absent. For example, the weather may be different, if there is weather at all. The temperature may always be the same, there may be no wind, etc. Consequently, day and night may static depending on location as the heavenly earth does not spin. Another idea is heavenly space has no restrictions, not dependent on time, so it may be variable in nature. Remember, all this is speculative. Just try to envision a safe place, one we will enjoy that may be a little different, but with many wondrous new functions and attributes not found on our universal Earth. 16.2.3 Netherworld Realm. This is the trickiest of realms as we know the least about it. What we know comes from folklore and superstition, although there are some references from the Holy Bible, Quran and other religious books. It seems to be a realm that contains both good and evil forces and is not to be messed with. All I can say is it is nothing like the other two realms, it is strictly mystical in nature. To describe the netherworld we must grasp at something we know while looking at the bigger picture of all three realms working together. What we know so far is the universal and heavenly realms are places that are separate but closely related and possibly dependent on each other. It stands to reason that they were created to work together. So, the question is, what in our universe can we use to extrapolate a higher form that represents a relationship between such realms? The only model that seems to work is called binary stars. A binary star is a star system consisting of two stars orbiting around a common center of mass. The brighter star is called the primary and the other is its companion star. They're held together with a common gravitational force. People have been studying binary stars, sometimes called double stars or twin stars, since before telescopes. They are found consistently throughout the universe. Granted, applying a universal object class to realms is all speculation, but we have to start somewhere. Binary stars is a good candidate for a baseline to try to represent our three realms working together. In this scenario, let's say that heaven is the primary realm while the universe is its companion, simply because heaven will exist longer than the universe, thus it is the brighter of the two. As we said above, logically heaven and earth, universe, have the same creator, thus should be similar, but where is the creator? The object model and general logic tells us that the creator cannot fit in his own creation. He must be outside of it. In some way, unknown forces created and continue to facilitate and support the two realms described above. Referring back to our realm model, binary stars have a central mass that provides gravitational forces to keep the stars in place. I propose that the central mass for our binary realms 9 is God, or at the very least where God resides. It is the central point on side of the realms making it all work. This notion is supported by the Christian belief that Jesus is the same substances as God, the Father and Creator, connected through their love in a third person known as the Holy Spirit. Here, I propose to ask, why does the Trinity exist? Why have three persons in one God? In no way am I suggest restricting God, but God himself created the Trinity for a purpose. Using our model, I speculate that God the Father exists outside of the two realms in our model's center mass. He is larger and greater than his creation. Jesus is the same substances of God but in a special way that can reside within realms. Conversely, the Holy Spirit is also the substances of God, but in a different and special way that can exist in and around the realms. The three are the same substances with different purposes and are always connected, thus one God in three persons. With all that said, what is the netherworld? Well, I don't believe it is a place as others, but a force, or object function, of the center mass. In our universe we have gravity to keep everything in line. Like gravity, there must be a force keeping the binary realms in line with the center mass. This very much unknown force plus the void in and around the binary realms and the center mass equals what we call the netherworld. It is what binds the realms together and allows travel between. Now, what goes on in this realm is for another book. Here let's just acknowledge that there is a force like mystical gravity that exists surrounding the entire binary realm system. Meaning, the netherworld exists on Earth, in heaven and all places in between. Nikola Tesla, the inventor of the alternating current induction motor, AC power, studied the notion that the netherworld was all around us and concluded that the forces existed in harmonic distortion. He believed we could harness this force as a power and communication facility. Nevertheless, Mr. Tesla's research did not result in any definitive conclusions, so we really still have no idea of how the netherworld works. So, if it is harmonic, intradimensional or something else we may never know, but I think we can agree it must exist as it serves an important purpose in our binary realm model. I believe the netherworld exists, it is all around us. It's a place that contains both good and evil. I picture it as a rushing stream passing just over our heads containing freshest cool water. We can put our hand up and touch it if we wish, but I caution anyone who tries, as this stream is also laced with strips of fire. At any given time, one has no idea whether they are reaching for fire or water. Personally, I don't want to get burned. 16.3 Discernment. To continue discussions on spirituality in a less objective way, we must talk about discernment. The dictionary states discernment is the power to see what is not evident to the average mind, the quality of being able to grasp and comprehend what is obscure. I like to suggest that discernment is the ability to listen to that little voice in your head that is providing good direction and options. For me, discernment is an essential part of spirituality. It represents understanding received from the heavens. Discernment is the act of quiet contemplation. The focus on a single thought with honest intentions, typically achieved through meditation or prayer, the mind is literally expanded. As a result of that expansion, the mind is able to discern. Discernment is an essential part of spirituality regardless of your religious beliefs, although it is something we need to develop. We just need to commit to it and be patent. Dare I say it, we must have faith. I assure you that you will find that possessing the ability to discern opens your mind to a new way of viewing the world around you and the universe itself. How do I achieve this ability? Well, it is so simple you may not believe it. The process is to meditate. Meditate for 7 to 10 minutes once a day for about 21 days. Simply find a quiet place in your home, workplace, or church. Sit quietly by yourself without interruption. Within 3 weeks or so, there will be a change. You will start to notice things you never saw before. Your personal confidence will increase as you realize that you have become part of something that is bigger than you. It is an amazing feeling that I wish everybody could experience. Believe me, all things are possible through this practice. Being happy and peace-filled is a foregone conclusion once discernment is consistently practiced. 17. Thinking outside the gray matter. Hold on to your hat, because I am about to suggest something outrageous. Are you ready? The brain is not a thinking device, but a communication device. As shocking as that may seem, it is a very simple premise based on current scientific evidence. After all we know about the brain is that it is a collection of plugs and sockets. Simply said, it is a very advanced macrobiotic switchboard. Think of the entire human body as a highly advanced robot. As compared with any modern robot, it is capable of many incredible feats on its own or with the assistance of an operator. It carries its own memory, its own communication system, its own power conversion and distribution system. It even has its own computer-style processor, commonly called the brain, to handle complex instructions and operations. Now the real questions are how and why do these brain receptors connect to each other? Well, my answer is that there must be an operator of body, a being that allows it to perform on its own and or makes adjustments when needed. It is our benefactor. Our bodies cannot operate without it. It feels when we feel, it thinks as we think. It is our guide, it leads us through life's journey. I propose that somehow, some way beyond our understanding, this being, known as our soul, operates our body by arranging and connecting the brain receptors. Simply said, the brain is a control panel for the soul. It is the communication device, connecting our bodies, in a physical realm, to the spiritual realm. The soul is a funny thing. Popular culture is riddled with references in poetry, songs and literature, yet nobody really wants to discuss its origin or purpose. For many people, the soul is a mystical ghostly figure that is somehow associated with us but does not play an active role. It is my view that we are our soul. When we think, our soul thinks. When we feel, our soul feels. I included this soul brand theory to emphasize how important spiritually is to our happiness and peacefulness. It is part of who we are. We are a spirit, who lives in this world while being connected to another. We are part of the physical, yet we are a spirit. One's happiness is directly related to his/her understanding of whom we are and how we are connected to each other. This connection is through the spirit, not the physical. It is through the spirit that we are connected to our Creator and the universe as a whole. Somehow, this notion is one that we have lost. As a society, we've discounted and disregarded all ideas not physical. I believe we throw out the baby with the bathwater. History shows us that ancient civilizations were very much aware of this notion. In fact, they integrated it in every facet of their lives. Now, I am not discounting the advancements achieved by science, but there is no need to reject spiritual wisdom in lieu of science. Both can exist and complement each other. I like to believe this book is a testament to a holistic approach to understand one's world and role in it. Our opportunity, here and now, is to take a next step in our personal and cultural development, to understand the physical as it relates to the spiritual. 18. Expanding your horizon. This chapter is about fog. The emotional fog we all live in, the cloud of doubt and fear that hinders our vision and drives us to increased obsessiveness, inhibition, and guilt. The question is not who is or who is not in a fog. It is how thick the fog is, how far through it we see, what we understand, and what we trust. In a sense, what is our horizon? Everybody on this planet lives in a personal atmosphere bordered by a horizon created by the fog of our emotions. In order to expand one's atmosphere, one must break through the foggy horizon. Once through, one will see a completely new world previously hidden, one with new awareness and understanding. We can achieve this through increased fervor and willingness to consider the unknown, to look beyond oneself. At first, I thought it would be a great challenge to discuss this concept, as nobody can see outside his or her own atmosphere without curiosity and the courage to reach out. It is easy to say at least once in your life, you must have had broken through a horizon boundary to understand the concept. It seems like a classic catch-22. How can one explain color to a colorblind person? Then I realized that most every adult has busted through at least one barrier in his or her life, the barrier of childhood. As St. Paul said, "When I was a child, I used to talk as a child, think as a child, reason as a child. When I became a man, I put aside childish things." 11. We are all born into a very small personal atmosphere. As we grow, our atmosphere grows. As we reach adulthood, our atmosphere mainly grows through increased responsibility. Regretfully, it can also shrink. Many times in life, our atmospheres shrink when we are hurt and disappointed. It is a leap of trust to expand one's atmosphere, it's through fear and inhibition it shrinks. Here we'll talk about growing personal atmospheres. 12. Growing them through understanding, trust, and courage. I believe, as humans, it is one's duty to continually grow and enrich one's lives and the lives of the people around them. Expanding one's horizons is one way of describing that growth. Moreover, in keeping with the theme of this book, as we expand our atmospheres, we will grow in peace, happiness, and purpose. Experts and novices alike commonly call this perception, but as we discussed in Chapter 11, human perception is a very different notion, based on very specific physical human attributes, while this idea transcends the physical and emotional. What we are discussing here scales from the negative of self to an experiential beyond the universe, simply called the beyond. The thickness of our emotion fog dictates our ability to expand or retract our horizon. To illustrate this, we have set up 5 levels called person atmospheres. Like our Earth, the atmosphere is a measurement of the protective space built to keep us safe, that allows us to live and to interact with fellow Earthlings. As the NASA's space programs has proven, leaving an atmosphere is challenging and dangerous, but the benefits are astounding. Before the Hubble Space Telescope 13, scientists looked through Earth-based telescopes that showed the universe in black and white. Now, scientists see the splendor of universe in its true colors. One's personal atmosphere clouds the true colors of the universe in the same way. It is a measure of the fog and ability to look through it. It is a gauge to help understand our current atmosphere and how better to expand it. As with most scales, our atmospheres expands as we travel up the 5 levels. While reading this chapter, try to figure out where your person horizon lies within the personal atmospheric scale. There are no right answers here. Everybody is on his or her own atmospheric journey. Figure 12. Personal atmospheres. 18.1 Atmosphere of self. In this atmosphere, the word individual is truly a noun, a subject that remains always in focus. The action word here is promise. Here people pursue the promise of happiness, success, and beauty. It is a search for self-affirmation. While reading this section, keep in mind Chapter 2's catch line, "If it's not about me, it's not important." Here is a scenario we all have seen, a frazzled mother at the grocery store with her child. The child wants a small toy on the shelf in the checkout line. She wants the toy, and is determined to win their way with screaming and ranting. The mother's calm and reason have been pushed to the side by a single-minded desire to acquire. The child's focus is exclusively on the object and the mother's focus is exclusively on the child's behavior. As a result, both people are blinded by emotion. Their focus filters out all outside influences. How many times have we seen a situation like this? We were all kids once. I am sure we all have our stories of fussing about toys and other playthings we have wanted, regardless of whether we needed them, and never considering whether our parents could afford them. We all outgrow this. Is it is a phase, or do we? Most of us do not throw temper tantrums and screaming fits when we do not get exactly what we want. However, has this immature form of selfish desire simply been replaced by a more restrained version of self-centeredness? Is it possible that some people still put their own wants above the needs of others? In society, we see plenty of evidence that this is the case. We see it in the pettiness of everyday behavior, cutting off another car to get through a stoplight before it turns red, slipping ahead of others in line because we do not want to wait, taking the biggest piece of pie. Regretfully, we see it manifested in much more troubling ways. It shows itself in a marriage that fails, because one or both people were unwilling to subordinate personal wants to the needs of the other. We see it in a person who steals from their employer because, well, she could use the money. We see it in the parent who would rather spend time at her own hobbies, work, or other interests than with her child or family. It is easy to say that we all have some level of childish selfishness in us. After all, we are human. On the other hand, most of us believe it is our duty to do our best not to be selfish, although it may be difficult. It is part of our basic makeup to do good for others and to put our selfish needs aside. Experts will say that selfishness is a normal phase of childhood development, but what if we do not grow out of it? What if a person never realizes when it's time to put childish ways behind? However, it does not need to be that way. Learning to put desires below others' needs is a trained behavior, which requires effort and practice. Putting others first is a habit that promises to enrich life beyond anything that self-centered pursuits could possibly offer. It is beyond being emotionally satisfying, it is one of the most important steps in becoming a mature, happy and peace-filled person. It is plain to see, when a person is selfish, they are exclusively focused on themselves. Like being in a fog, they can only see what is in them. We consider this a negative atmosphere, as the person can only see within themselves. It is not that they are bad people and do not have concerns for others, but it is that they do not see or know of anybody else's situation. They are not in the practice of serving others, therefore, they have no idea that others have needs too. The fact is, our emotions filter our vision of world, it holds us back from being the people we are capable of being. It dictates the size of our personal atmosphere. When the vision is only of us, the vision is inward, or negative. The only way to step out of this atmosphere of self is to start the practice of unselfishly helping others. Undoubtedly, this takes a great deal of courage and possibly the help of friends and family. Stepping out of oneself is the most difficult thing a person can do, but I assure you it is also the most rewarding. So, if you know a selfish person, invite them to help at a soup kitchen, a homeless shelter or a church. Invite them to join you on a regular basis. Remember, it is the practice of helping others, not the single event. Over time, both you and your friend will expand each other's person atmospheres with awe and splendor beyond wildest expectations. 18.2 Atmosphere of culture. Unlike the atmosphere of self, here the emphasis is on a group or collections of groups, cultures, or societies. Similar to the previous atmosphere, the action word is still promise. Here many people pursue the promise of achievement, power, fame and affluence. It is a group affirmation, always looking for approval. A strong sense of belonging is a very basic component of being human. It is natural for people to look for a group of other people with similar interests. When a person has low self-esteem because of the challenges in their life, it is natural to join a group and gain its esteem. The act of joining and being accepted reaffirms self-worth and is very important in her general well-being. Many teenagers grow through reaching out to groups for belonging. Experts tell us that this is a natural adolescent phase to link one's identity with others. At issue here is when belong becomes obsessive, when both the need and availability of joining groups grows beyond a person's capability. In the modern world, too many groups want us to join. As a society, we are being bombarded by invitations, by popular culture, by marketing groups, by religious groups, etc. The list is endless: preferred customer, loyalty programs, clubs, frequent traveler clubs, fashion trends, celebrities' antics, etc. It is easy for the act of belonging to become a full-time job. We fill our days with watching TV shows to see what comes next. We read gossip magazines to keep up with the ever-active Celebrate core. Have you ever missed the TV news for one day or skipped reading the paper and felt that you have lost something? Well, what you have lost is your affirmation of your sense of belonging. Belong is both good and bad. It can provide increased self-esteem, but it can control your life. You may have noticed big advertisers and politicians like people with a strong sense of belonging. They look for it, they count it. After all, people with a strong sense of belonging are good consumers and voters. The best example is reality TV. The popular American Idol 14 and other shows rely on millions of Americans to call or text message their votes each week. Why do so many vote, one may ask? To be associated with a winner or to make sure their person is not a loser. In a similar way to a selfish person, as one's sense of belonging consumes us, it clouds our atmospheric vision. Our focus is limited to the actions and values put forth by the groups that we identify with. Their values become our values, their priorities become ours. It is easy for a person to lose their identity this way. The atmosphere of culture is one of hollow promises and lost identities. It is a never-ending chase for something a person will never obtain. My advice for somebody whom feels addicted to popular culture and its invitations is to find your own identity. Be aware of the many invitations being receiving on a daily basis, be selective, be deliberated in your choices. Choose a theme to your belonging, a sense of purpose to the relationship. I invite you to expand your personal atmosphere with a sense of purpose. 18.3 Atmosphere of Humanity. In this atmosphere, we return to an emphasis on the individual, but here the word individual becomes a verb, an action word. The idea is every individual has a purpose and it is one's duty to pursue that purpose to the best of abilities. The focus is no longer on promise, but change. Here we are asked to transform oneself for a higher cause. In Maslow's hierarchy of needs, discussed in Chapter 9, we talked about the need for self-actualization. Abraham Maslow defined it as the desire to become more and more what one is, to become everything that one is capable of becoming. Maslow believed that people who have everything are able to maximize their potential. They can seek knowledge, peace, aesthetic experiences, self-fulfillment, and oneness with God. I hope this sounds familiar as it echoes the theme of this book. Like Mr. Maslow, I believe that one can obtain self-actualization through the pursuit of knowledge, understanding, peace and oneness with God. I disagree with Maslow on the point that one must have everything in order to maximize one's potential. To support his case, Maslow cites the typical middle to upper class student who take up environmental causes, join the Peace Corps, or go off to a monastery. Here, I like to cite the many poor and uneducated man and woman throughout the ages whom have picked up a good cause and scarifies everything for it. I also like to highlight the many educators, doctors, nurses and clergy whom came from nothing and expect nothing in return. There are certainly people in the world today, from all walks of life that have achieved a high level of self-actualization. They are people we certainly do not understand. I am sure you have come across some in your life journey. When meeting them, one can see that they are happy and peace-filled, although we have no idea how or why. After all, they typically have nothing and life modest lives. They do not brag or boast. They are quite people. Here, I like to suggest an explanation for what we do not understand. The idea that they have achieved a larger vision, one that is larger than life, one with expanded understands, without regret. This atmosphere is one without the burden of obsessiveness, inhibition or guilt. It is a warm and inviting atmosphere of fulfillment. The atmosphere of humanity is about dedicating oneself to a greater good. Unlike the two previous atmospheres, here a person must step out of themselves, take a risk and redirect their life in a new course. It is about achieving a sense of purpose. I assure you that once a person realizes where their life should lead to, the journey becomes exciting and rewarding. I encourage you to learn more about this pursuit. There are many books available on the subject of achieving a purposeful life. The most famous of which is The Purpose-Driven Life 15 by Dr. Rick Warren. If you have not already read one of these books, please do. After all, a purposeful life is one worth having. 18.4 Atmosphere of Universe. The universe is an interesting being. It is a large complex living creature doing its thing as planned without regard. There are no excuses, no rationalizations, no apologies. To understand the universe is to understand life itself. The entrance into this atmosphere requires a realization of a living truth, the one singular universal truth. The first thing one must appreciate is that one cannot pursue this atmosphere, it pursues you. Sometimes called an epiphany, it starts as a coming to knowledge. All one can do is preparation to receive it. Why it is important that we must come to knowledge. Why would one even want to know the truth? What will it do for us? Should we even care? In essence, learning the truth offers true happiness, peace in our life no matter what is happening. The truth offers physical, emotional, and spiritual safety. The closer we get to the truth, the more it takes care of us and our loved ones. The truth carries us to the greatest of all love, even if no one on earth cares if we exist. It brings us understanding, a wisdom that cannot be measured in power, fame, or riches. It is the ability to know how and why life actually works and to have it work for us, not against us. In preparation, one must recognize and accept what is true. We must understand that what we want to be true is not necessarily the truth. We must let go of many of our traditions that may be holding us back. To obtain additional truth, one needs to first open up. Let go of fear and imitational view of things, unshelter the mind and heart. For some, the truth is very hard to hear. Do not let this be an obstacle. Beware of some modern-day philosophies and false teachings that try to argue cleverly away the truth. The truth does not expect us to take someone else's word for it. The truth will testify for itself. Personal testimony is by far the most powerful evidence between knowing what is true, and what is just an idea dreamed up by a friend with good intentions. If one is sincere and seeks earnestly, one will have powerful experiences that can be life-changing. This will be an indication that we are not just making this up and that we are on the right path. How do we prepare? We prepare by pursing knowledge. We actively purse learning about people and their interrelations, the elements of influence, feelings, human perception, objective reality, and the workings of the universe. It is very important to remember, no matter what it is that is being learned, we must obtain a personal testimony of it. If you cannot seem to obtain it right away, keep trying. The truth will not make you wait, it will only delay its arrival until you are genuinely prepared. One will know what to do when the time comes. It is a delicate process. Do not rush ahead with impatience. As you move forward reading through these pages, if you feel you need to stop and take some time to contemplate before press on, please do so. It will have been worth the wait, and in the end, you will step forward to claim life's most precious gem that will truly change everything around you. 18.5 Atmosphere of the Beyond. To say that the subject of this section is a lofty one is an understatement. Here we are pursuing an atmosphere that is in communion with God. As I mentioned in chapter 16, this is not a religious book, but it is difficult to discuss happiness and peace without God. If you are not interested, this section is not for you. Our basic assumption here is that God exists. He created the universe and He is available to us on earth. God knows what will bring us peace and happiness better than we do. For us to obtain these things, we must come closer to God. The evidence is all around us. As a society, we have just forgotten how to look for it. We are quick to rationalize anything beyond comprehension. Learned people have gone to great lengths, as far as calling good people crazy, to protect their ideas of how the world should work. I hope this book has shown how to separate the fear from the facts and make up your own mind, as here we are grasping beyond understanding an explainable phenomenon. Our God is a very accommodating God, one who gives His people free will to live as they please. While many respect this, by living good lives, many more abuse the privilege and take others down with them. God created the world and gave it order, but man, through his free, bad choices, has turned it into something far different. In terms of personal atmosphere, we are focusing on the multitude of people that have connected directly with God while still on earth. The evidence is dramatic. Throughout the ages, religious and non-religious folks alike have achieved a communion with God. Some of the most spiritually gifted people in human history are classified as saints. In fact, the Catholic Church follows strict guidelines when choosing a saint, and certain criteria must be met, including but not limited to the performance of miracles. However, many other extraordinary people were never canonized, although share the same principal traits as those deemed worthy of sainthood. We consider these folks mystics. What do they all have in common? Well, I believe the answer is that saints and mystics alike have reached this atmosphere. When studying people whom have reached the beyond, one finds a basic pattern with three elements. First, they are all singularly focused on God in every aspect of their life. They have willingly committed themselves to Him. They trust him implicitly with their very being. As this book has explained, one's life is dictated by one's choices. It is important to note that a common thread among saints and mystics is that they have given their choices away, they have given them back to God. The idea is that God knows our purpose and path better than we do, so he will lead us in a righteous way. Commitment is essential, as it provides a person the courage to take a blind step forward. Next is solitude. One finds God is in the silence, not in the noise of everyday life. It is important to be alone for long periods without interruptions or distractions. It seems that these people spend a great deal of time in a cave, up on a pole, or in a monastery chapel. The third element is sacrifices. Sacrifice is very important. It is important to remember that one's sacrifices need not be harmful, just thoughtful. Meaning, your sacrifice must be a conscious one. It's best to sacrifice consistently, one must be committed to it. In many ways, this atmosphere is the loftiest, but in others it is the most humble. It can only be reached through personal testimony, commitment, and scarifies, the last shall be first. To help one in a quest, here is a list of essential atmospheric elements. Seek peace above all things and in every situation. Learn to love during even the most difficult times when you would rather hate. Let go of all fear, replace it with faith. Trust God in all things, both great and small. Do all that you can and then be still, and know that all is in God's hands. He will do what you cannot. Love God and recognize all that he does for us. Seek God. He has always been there waiting for us. We just need to open up to his subtle presence. Pray and meditate daily and live your life with a continual prayer in your heart. Pray with a heartfelt prayer and with a real intention to find God. He has come halfway, he is just waiting for us. Once you open up, he will reveal his beautiful hidden presence to you and all things will change. Follow the gentle feeling of your heart. That is where God will whisper to you and caress you. Learn to give up things and make small sacrifices. Change your heart. It will astound you. Learn to stretch yourself. You are capable of more than you may think. However, God does not intend for you to run faster than you are able. Forgive those who do wrong to you. Do not judge them. We cannot see what is in their heart. There are no coincidences. Examine the daily events in your life and see what God is trying to show you. Lastly, and most of all, do not give up. If you fall, get right back up and keep going. God is forgiving beyond our comprehension to those who are sincerely trying. Theologians will tell you that we are all called to be saints. I imagine, we can endlessly debate that notion among each other and within our own hearts. All I can tell you is that sainthood is available to all of us. Everybody on earth can reach this atmosphere. It is your choice to pursue it. 19. The challenge before us. We are in frightful times. Signs everywhere give evidence that our time is unlike any time in the history of the world. Yes, there have always been wars, persecutions, atrocities, and difficulties. But never in history has society been so advanced and yet been so in the fog dark, swayed into mediocrity, devoid of wisdom, elevated in the comforts of life higher than any king of the pre-modern past, the meaning of marriage so meaningless, families so dispensable, friendships so superficial, the future so insecure, and so bleak. Yet, the mentality of modern society is that these developments are positive and progressive. Today, we are being herded by negative influences, they are so overpowering. Society is a negative influence machine pumping out its products at an alarming rate. If there is anything that this book proves is that influential messages are owned by the sender. The receiver's only choice is to accept or reject. Have you ever noticed when there is a scandal in the media like the ones generated by TV personalities such as Don Imus or Howard Stern, the other media outlets quickly come to the rescue. Their favorite response is, well, if you don't like what you are watching, change the channel or switch it off. The simple truth is, we cannot change the channel or switch off the TV because there is no safe refuge. The media noise is so loud and unwieldy that no one person has a chance. There are so many bad media choices that they drown out the few good ones. Popular culture frowns upon wholesome content. It teaches our children that good messages are not cool. How we can protect ourselves. How can we protect our family from such a deluge of negativity? How can a small child or an impressionable teenager protest themselves from messages they are not prepared to receive? The best solution is for the content providers to change their business model and produce quality content with our best interest in mind. Short of that solution, we must arm ourselves for the worst. I can only hope that this book can help you arm yourself to provide the tools to fend off as many bad messages as possible. In this book, we have discussed many reasons why it cannot be about us. Well, here we plan to contradict this message just a little. In fact, it is all about us. It is about feelings, understanding, choices, and actions. Everything depends on us, how we treat other people, how we respect others and ourselves, how we humble ourselves in service to others. I can only hope the concepts and theories in this book can help you handle your life challenges and achieve your personal goals. May happiness and peace be with you for the remainder of your life. 9 Binary Realms, Copyright 2007 by Robert T. Byrnes, all rights reserved.